Is
Cool.
it out of bounds to do that? I don't think so.
So we've got a few people joining at the minute, which is great. This is awesome. We've already got 80 people joining the call, and the
That number keeps climbing.
keep climbing.
Oh,
So
wonderful.
I feel like we're going to help a lot of people today, which is the main aim. So that's fantastic. Cool. So I think we should probably start to kick off, and then people can just keep joining as we go on. So first of all, just want to thank everyone for joining. We're super excited to have you all here. Daniel, Stu, Charlie, and Alex are on the call, all going to introduce themselves in a minute. I'm from ReachDesk. So ReachDesk is a sending platform. We help send out e-gift cards and physical direct mail. I know Alex will explain a little bit more about that in a second. I put this call together really to help myself at first. As a BDR and leading a BDR team, one of my first questions was, how do I book meetings as the time has changed? So it's been super interesting from our previous conversations to get everyone's thoughts. I know that I was planning some events that got cancelled, so I was affected with that, and my team was as well. It could have impacted our pipeline. And also how do we use different channels? How do we reach these people which are now working from home? So there were some big questions that I had. But the main reason that we're here is because of Stu's book. So how to get a meeting with anyone, and hence the name of the webinar, how to get a meeting with anyone remotely, which I'm sure Stu's going to talk all about in a little bit as well, but some really great ideas there. So I reached out to my network, including Dan, Stu, Charlie, and Alex, and we kind of had a 20-minute chat the other day, and it got into some really detailed answers on how we can help other people. So without further ado, I'm just going to hand over to Daniel, first of all, to introduce yourself and kick off our webinar.
Ooh, well, thank you for inviting me, Ben. I thought this was a great idea. What's happening around the world is impacting everyone at the moment. And so hopefully through this, we'll be able to provide some insights and tips to help guide salespeople through these tough times. My name's Daniel Disney. I run the Daily Sales, author of the £1 Million LinkedIn Message, and pretty much heavy in the world of LinkedIn and social selling. So hopefully I'll be able to share some insights in how you guys and your sales teams can leverage LinkedIn and social techniques to connect, reach, and still book meetings and conversations with potential prospects and buyers. So super excited for this one. I'll pass over to Stu.
Oh, well, thank you. I'm joining you from Seattle. This is wonderful. This is amazing. You are all in London, and I keep saying good morning, and it isn't. But, well, if you think about it, just in general, if you think about it, all the great things, all the big accomplishments in our lives, all the great advancements in our lives happen because we have meetings, because we meet the right people, because we make the right connections. That just happens throughout our lives. And it's not just for business or for sales. It's how we meet our spouses. It's how we meet people, our friends. It's how we meet our mentors and our partners. I mean, our strategic partners and so on. Meetings are just critical to human interaction. And right now we know that that's, well, we would think that that's being hampered actually, but I think we're actually in a golden time of opportunity to not only get meetings, but create connections that are going to last and are going to help us emerge from I would say emerge from all this in a better state. But I think actually there's all kinds of business being written all throughout this period. And so what we have though is a whole lot of people working from home. A lot of people are not used to it. And even if they are used to it, nobody's traveling. So all of the time that takes out of someone's schedule is gone at the moment. I think people are a little bored at this point, working from home. And so actually, I am finding it this way, and in my roundtables, it's certainly being borne out by all the comments that I'm hearing. You know, people are getting meetings. People are desperate, not desperate, let's say, but certainly very open to having conversations that perhaps they wouldn't have had before. It's just for the sake of stimulation, if nothing else. But then I also find, as Daniel was just saying, and Ben, as you were just saying, there's a lot happening out there, a lot of businesses taking place. It didn't stop at all. If you are a business-to-business seller, this is a golden opportunity, an opportunity of a lifetime to make connections that will really change your scale. And so, yeah, I'm glad to be joining you, and I'm honored to join this group. It's an amazing group. So yeah, that's my take on this.
Thanks, Stu. I think that's, I'm excited to dive further into that a bit later. Over to you, Charlie.
Oh, thanks, Ben. So I'm Charlie. I am the marketing director at a company called Tenzing. So actually 5 days into a role here, so brand new, but I've spent the last 10 years in B2B SaaS. So one of the things that I've always loved about my role is connecting with other marketers, other sales teams, and hearing, you know, what's working, what's not, sharing ideas. And what I've really loved about this group coming together is there's lots of different opinions, there's lots of different strategies that are working. Obviously, you know, each individual in this group has their own network. So hopefully today we can kind of share some of those successes with the rest of you. Really, really looking forward to it.
Amazing. Yeah, I know it's definitely a big change you in your new role in the past 5 days. So it's just showing how times are moving. And, you know, I think you've really taken that under your wing and been a prime example of that. So thank you. Over to Alex.
Yeah, thanks, Ben. I think you've kind of introduced ReachDesk briefly already, but I'm one of the founders of ReachDesk. One of the reasons why we started the company was to help sales professionals break through to people. How do you create a positive relationship and a long-lasting one? Kind of what you were saying before, Stu. It's not just about opening a door to someone. It's about how do you create a long-lasting relationship. I remember when we started it, we kind of based it on one thing. You know, people will forget what you say and what you did, but they'll never forget how you made them feel. So our business was built primarily to help sales, marketing, customer success, create relationships, and ultimately, you know, break through to people in a meaningful way. We started off as an e-gift carding supplier, then we moved more heavily into like direct mail and gifting. And what we've seen over the past sort of certainly 6 weeks is that resurgence of e-gifting and people wanting to have a point of differentiation right now. So it's been an interesting couple of weeks, but kind of here to not just talk about ReachDesk or barely talk about us at all, and actually discuss what those methods are that actually do allow you to break through to people, but more importantly, for when you have that conversation, for that to almost be perpetual, for it to last a good amount of time, so that whatever you're doing right now will benefit you for the future.
Awesome. So just add a little structure to the call. I think it's really important that we make this interactive as much as possible. So if you have any questions throughout, please put them in the chat box. I will try and ask them as we go along. But also at the end, what I'd like everyone to do is just find that raise your hand button down at the bottom. If you have any questions that you want to put to the panelists or any stories that you want to share, then at the end of the session, it'd be a great opportunity to do that as well. So I think kicking off, my first question is, obviously, since we chatted a couple of weeks ago now, I'm sure lots has changed. So what have you seen are the biggest changes in the past week or two?
I think can I pick up on that one first, Ben, if that's right?
Go on.
I think we were kind of discussing this briefly just beforehand. I've seen some phenomenal things happen over the past couple of weeks. Initially, when you go, I sort of analysed what happened back in 2008, 2009, and like other times where it's difficult. You sort of start in this state of panic, and then everyone doesn't know what's going to happen, how long it's going to last for. But what I've learned over the past couple of weeks is that humans are incredibly creative. They'll find ways to do things 5 times as fast, and to support one another and share their ideas. Like what we're doing here is sharing our ideas, right? Everyone seems to be willing to do that. I think that's the best thing I've seen. You know, there's a lot of bad things happening right now, but there's so much to learn. Like I certainly within our company, have found 10 new ways of doing things that I wouldn't have even thought of doing, that I think we'll just keep doing forever. So the thing I've learned most recently is that, one, we are way more creative than we think, and there's always another idea that you can throw into the mix. And two, that we will have things that we'll keep forever, that will actually make the way that we break through to people, like, I think forever, way better than what we did before.
Awesome. Go on, Stu, do you have anything to add to that?
Well, I was going to say that I think that Zoom has, and I know there are other services, Google Hangouts and Skype and so forth, but Zoom has really become the new definition of meeting almost, because it's just so simple to do it. And you know, we feel, it does feel like you're making a personal connection. Well, we are making a personal connection, actually, by doing this. Zoom has taken over as sort of the new definition of having a meeting. There's no risk. We're not going to cough on each other. We can have meetings all the time. People can have meetings from wherever they are, certainly from home. So it makes it very easy, sort of frictionless to have meetings, maybe more frictionless than ever before to have meetings. That's one of the things I've noticed in the last week. That, and probably everyone is getting very, very bored at this point if they've been sheltering at home. I mean, we've been under shelter or stay-at-home orders for a month, and that's just a long time to not do. Well, it's not like not doing anything, but not go out at all, unless it's for food. I think that that, you know, while we all of us have a chance of contracting the virus, we are all, you know, we have a chance of it, but I would say that all of us have already caught cabin fever. I don't know if that's even an expression in London, but I mean in England, but the cabin fever of just, oh God, I just want to do something, has arisen as well. I think that's what I'm seeing in the last week.
I think just to add to that as well, I think my biggest learning is, you know, as cheesy as it might sound, time is such a healer. And we are, you know, 4 weeks into this now. The first week, certainly for me, was a very high state of anxiety. There was absolutely no way I was responding to any sort of inbound sales request or request for a meeting, because all I was doing was scrolling through the news. But as time's gone on, that anxiety has really gone down. And, you know, like she said, people have got more time. They are desperate for that connection. And obviously it's still a bit of a frightening time, but I think people are just kind of getting used to this new way of working now. So yeah, I do think that people's approaches to, one, accepting meetings, but also, you know, I thought 2 weeks ago in terms of what my recommendation would be for sales team outreach is very, very different to what it is now.
Do you mind me asking, Charlie? Because obviously that would have been when you were in your previous company. But what was the first time? What were the first things that you were saying to your sales reps, particularly like your SDRs, at that moment? Do you feel like you had clear guidance as to how they should approach this?
Yeah, so it made me laugh. So I saw your comment on LinkedIn earlier about you know, leading with empathy, and it's a bit generic, and, you know, focus on adding value. And I think, you know, we were all learning then. And I actually think, you know, I think we spoke about this before, but I always try and encourage sales teams to add value and lead with empathy. And I've always really loved that Gary Vaynerchuk book and talk about, you know, jab, 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 right hook. And you have to provide an enormous amount of value before you ask for anything in return. So I think then it was kind of, you know, I was definitely giving them that advice about, you know, make sure you help people. But again, it was quite broad. Whereas now I think we've come up with content where, you know, that is actually a helpful piece of content. It's not just, it's less fluffy. So I think we've kind of got the resources to back up the sort of the strategy as well.
I think that comment was not intended to like spark conversation. I think those should have been table stakes, as you say, right? That should be what all sales reps should have been taught to do anyway. You should always lead with empathy. You should always understand your prospect situation. You should personalize what you do, and you should always add value. And it's amazing that I'm not going to put a number on it, but let's say more than half of organizations are now teaching their reps that, because they know that if they don't, people are going to fail. So I think it's almost put it to one side. The way I think about that is that what sales leaders need to do is they need to like actually take action. And if any of you are listening are sales leaders, what I did is I just put my neck on the line, right? And Ben is one of my team leads from BDRs. I sat down with him. I said, Ben, these are the things you need to do now. I can't guarantee that that this is the right message right now, but this is what I think is right. And I just broke it down into 3 things, right? You start with the problem, and you essentially look to the key questions that you want to answer. So for example, I'm just thinking of you, Charlie, events being cancelled, how can we generate leads instead? You then take a way of being able to present that back to them, saying how we can solve it, and then you show them the obtained value. And then what you can do is you can build a whole framework around that based on all the different key value driving points that your product, your service offers. You reverse engineering, and all of a sudden you've got all these sound bites and all these snippets that you can put into a very positive value-led exercise. And what I'm seeing actually is, rather than people saying, this is what you should do, this is what you should be saying, this is how you should be doing it, they're just saying, lead with empathy, be sympathetic. But if you're a 22-year-old SDR, you've barely learned how to, like, some of you are still trying to work out how to sequence stuff. You don't know what empathy or sympathy means right now. You actually need someone to say, those are the channels you can use right now. That's the messaging you should use. And if you're a sales leader out there, please do that. Do not fall into the trap of thinking if you tell your reps that you should just be empathetic, that's going to cut the mustard now, because I think it will just end up confusing them.
Yeah,
awesome.
I totally agree. I think also just on that point, as a practical thing people can do, walking a mile in someone else's shoes is such a powerful exercise. So if for example, if you know a marketer who is happy to kind of run through, what does my world look like right now? Or, I know people in HR, what does their world look like? What are they struggling with? To then help you kind of build through those points that where your solution can help. I think it's a really, really powerful exercise. And, people have more time on their hands right now to do things like training. So I think that could be really, really valuable.
Yeah.
Hey, could I jump in for a moment? I'm reading a lot of the comments. They're great questions. Like, how about some practical tips for getting these meetings, and how do we get the meetings? How do we arrange this while people are at home? If we're sending something, how does that work? And I don't want to hog the whole conversation, but I will certainly I'll pop in a couple of suggestions. People are reachable through their email accounts. I mean, they haven't stopped checking email. You can reach out to them that way. LinkedIn, my God, we have the world expert on connecting and selling through LinkedIn right here, Daniel Disney. I mean, my gosh, this is amazing to have you here. So certainly those, we can connect pretty easily with them. And if you don't have that contact information, Seamless.ai is a great way to get it, or Nimble, great tools for gathering contact information. And I guarantee people are more open to hearing from you now than they ever were before. And so people are asking, well, how do we connect with people while they're at home, or how do we send something to them at their home? And I think, I'm discovering, well, I'm an author, and I have a book that I can send out from Amazon pretty easily, although I'm going to have to switch over to sending it by ReachDesk soon, I think. But Amazon is still delivering books. And so if you have a favorite book, I mean, I think people are probably catching up on their reading right now and would love to get a book, your favorite book, the book that you think is the best one perhaps to address issues right now, or maybe issues as we come out of coronavirus, the pause, I mean. And I would say also what we're doing right now, I guess we could call this is a webinar, but roundtables. Someone also was asking, well, how can we create communities on a biweekly basis, something like that, and using Zoom or some other platform like it, and holding roundtables right now is incredible. You just invite the right people to join, the people that you want, let's say, to do business with later. You invite them to come onto a call like this, and you've got maybe 4 or 5 questions that you're going to discuss over the course of an hour, and people are loving it. I'm running one weekly right now, and people come in with the most amazing things. You're just sort of crowdsourcing wisdom as it is created through this pause. And so I think roundtables are a great way to do this. And by the way, you don't walk in with all sorts of pre-created content about it. The people there create the content, and I have one coming up on Thursday that has the marketing, or sorry, sales leaders of some of the biggest financial institutions in the world. They all agreed to, like in a heartbeat, they agreed to join us. And these are CSOs and CROs, so chief sales or revenue officers at some of these huge financial institutions. And so the first 20 we asked said yes, and that's our roundtable for Thursday. So I think those are great ways to make connections. I think that's probably a lot of why people are tuned into our webinar. I keep wanting to say this morning. If you're in the States this morning or this afternoon in Europe, is to get practical tips on how we connect. And I'm curious, Daniel, how does LinkedIn, it's like, I think it's a lifeline right now. How does that play into all this?
I think LinkedIn's boomed recently with activity from salespeople, from prospect customers. With everyone or a lot of people working from home, we are logged into LinkedIn and using it a lot more than we used to. And you're right, Stu, this is an amazing opportunity, not just through LinkedIn. I mean, you talked about sending gifts and books and stuff, and there's been a few questions that highlight one of the challenges, obviously, with people working from home. Not like you can send it to the office, you would need their home address to do so. Some people will be more than happy to pass it to you. I actually used ReachDesk for the first time this week, and they offered to send me a gift. And one of the good ways they did it was they sent this form where I could put my address in, and it's deleted sort of straight after, but it's done for the simple purpose of sending a gift. So there are ways that will make people feel a bit more comfortable sharing something like that they might be a bit reluctant to do so. So there is absolutely still huge opportunity to send physical gifts like books and any number of sort of physical things, which people are going to love right now. We are looking for those personal touches. We are stuck at home, either on our own or with our friends and family. And as you say, cabin fever is going to settle in if it hasn't already. So we're seeking those sort of conversations, whether it's through a physical gift or through things like LinkedIn. People are more active. I've seen a huge increase in response rates and just general increase in conversations. People just wanting to talk through LinkedIn Messenger or jump on to a Zoom or any form of sort of virtual conversation. So I guess my top advice at the moment is make sure you're connecting with prospects onto LinkedIn and just have real conversations. Switch off the salesperson autopilot, take off the heavy pressure you have. And, if you're a sales manager, take it off of your sales rep. If you're a sales rep, try and brush it aside and just be a human being and have human conversations. We have this unique situation where we all share what's happening. This isn't just impacting one industry, one country. What's happening right now is impacting everyone. And we have this opportunity to kind of connect and share the challenges. Empathy, whilst be a hollow word when used on its own, as Charlie said, put yourself in their shoes and understand their problems. One of the best things I can recommend is speak to your existing customers. Take a handful, or you should be speaking to all of your customers really, but have conversations with them, find out what's impacting them and how they're dealing with it. Take that information, and then when you have conversations with new prospective customers, you can share some of those insights and use that to start and progress conversations that you hopefully can then sort of transform. But yeah, LinkedIn, it's a good place to use, but top tip is just have real, authentic conversations. Get rid of the pitch and just talk to people.
I think that's really great. Something that I would like to ask is, when is an appropriate time to then move on to talking about a business need rather than a personal issue that somebody might be facing, or that first human approach to that conversation?
I think it's when you've really discovered the problem, right? If you've got yourself into a situation where you're speaking to someone and you understand their problem and you can solve that problem, then you should be saying, but like, by the way, this is what our problem solves. Is it worth us taking your time to look at that in more detail? Like, no strings attached. I know now it's different, but people should still be able to ask. Right? You should still, previously a lot of people just said, just sell the meeting. But if you know the problem, you say, by the way, this is the problem that we solve right now, then it's okay to ask. But you should also learn when to be honest and say, I can't help you with that right now, but I know someone who can. And if the world gets into a habit of building referrals, we'll all benefit from it. And equally, you can ask people for referrals. So I get what you're saying now, and now I'll go away and have a think about whether I know anyone who can help you with that. But at the same time, like, you should be able to say, look, do you know anyone who you think would benefit from this right now? Because if you've built a relationship with someone and they trust you, then actually you might get a couple of referrals and they might point you in the right direction that will start a conversation that could lead to a business opportunity, for example. So we shouldn't be afraid to ask, but you need to really understand the problem and be confident it's something that you can solve, and will add value to them right now.
One of the things I'm finding a lot of value in, by the way, someone asked, is there a disconnect with sending gifts, unannounced gifts to people at their home? And I don't think you actually can send something to their home without asking them, first of all, for their address, but also for their permission. And I think that's really important, because some people are going to be saying, oh my God, I don't want to receive anything right now through FedEx or the mail or UPS, any delivery service whatsoever. So getting permission, I think, is really important. I think also the more we, I was going to say also that if you have referral sources, so you could call someone and say, well, by the way, could I get a referral? But you probably have great referral sources already. And so you could be working with those referral sources. I think you should right now, to set up meetings, and in fact set up the roundtables that I just suggested earlier. And in fact, that roundtable is coming as a result of one of my really, really amazing referral partners who said, we really should, I work with all these CROs and CSOs at the big financial institutions. Why don't we put together a roundtable? So I wasn't even reaching out to them. He already has the relationship with these people, and that really is a great entree into talking to them about what they're facing. And I don't know that I would. I mean, we know that on LinkedIn, if your first communication with someone after connecting is a pitch, you're going to get blocked or at least dropped as a connection. That's just always the case, and I think that's still the case now. You talked about empathy, and Alex, and I think empathy takes the form of just having person-to-person, human-to-human conversations right now, and I think business flows from that. And I think there are people who will just ask you to explain what you do and how it would help. And I think people are that open to it that they're actually going to ask for it, rather than saying, I would say, coming out and just saying, can I pitch you?
Yeah.
Does that make any sense?
Yeah, I totally agree. It's interesting. I'm in a lot of like Slack channels, some with like account-based marketing managers or field marketers and SDRs. And some of these guys are actually creating communities and then setting up channels where you can just pitch one another. There are so many out there, by the way. Go and look for them. If there are opportunities where you can just go and pitch. I haven't done it myself yet. Maybe we should. Ben, put that on your list. But there are, like, people are putting people in a position where you can pitch. But it's like that, they're few and far between. It is hard. But I think the biggest question mark for a lot of people, as Ben asked before, is that, when do you ask for that meeting? Sometimes you will just know. Sometimes you might overstep the mark a little bit, but test the waters. And going back to what Charlie said, you've kind of got to walk in someone's shoes for a mile to really understand their situation. And then I think you will know when it's okay to ask. Before I ask Daniel something, I'd quite like to just touch on something, because it's been posted a lot in this thread. I think a lot of this is aimed at you, Stu, because a lot of people are saying, sending stuff to people's homes. We tested this last week, by the way. I was a bit scared about it because a lot of our business is sending gifts to offices. We spun up a load of bespoke landing pages with like positive content on, or we did like a competition, like an Easter giveaway gifting, and 60% of the people we sent the landing page to submitted it, filled out, and then sent themselves a gift to their home. All right, people want to receive stuff right now, okay? And that number's just gone up, actually. That was 2 days ago. People want to receive stuff. If you can find a way, if you don't have Reach Desk, that we have a page that you can use as a customer where you can use that, or like an address verification thing. But even if you don't have something like that, like us, let's say you're a salesperson, because one of the comments is asking about opportunities. Let's say you're a salesperson and you had a conversation with someone 3 months ago. You know they have kids, for example, because they mentioned something and you got to that level, you can send them a simple email saying, I'd really like to send you something so that you can take care of the kids whilst you're working from home, because it might be absolute mayhem right now. What's your address? I'm not going to keep it or anything. I'm just going to pop something in the post for you. That's a massive thing to do for someone right now. All it takes is an email, and you can deliver a lot of value. I've got about 100 books here. I'm going to send some of my personal books that I've read to some of my prospects because I know they're going to help with their situation right now. And it's just a small thing. I think people should be doing that. And all you need is that simple, thanks, Al, that's an amazing thing to do. Here's my address. Looking forward to receiving it. That's just an easy way to get around it.
You know what would be really, really interesting, Alex, is do you have any sort of a kit for, let's say, a survival kit for working from home?
We do,
anything
yeah,
that just stress relievers and like a basket of things. I don't know.
Yeah,
what a cool thing to be able to send.
We've got 3 sitting in our warehouse right now. So we've got one. We give you an option, right? If you choose it. We don't choose it for you. We say, I'd like to send you something right now because this sucks so much, right? You can either have a work from home with kids bundle, which has like coloring books and stuff so that you can just keep the kids busy. It's got a little voucher code for like Disney Plus or something. I can't remember what exactly is in there. But then there's something for you to make yourself productive. It's like a productivity book so that you can plan your day and keep yourself on track. That's one of them. Then there's like a bundle which is like for people who are doing the Joe Wicks home workout side of things. So it's got like stretchy bands and like it's got a sweatband in it, and it's got loads of things. Again, it's just like there is no objective behind this. I just want to make people's lives better right now. The other one is just an indulge yourself. It's got like a mini bottle of champagne, loads of chocolate, things of popcorn, and you can just sit on the couch, watch Netflix, and get fat. But as I said, like one of the reasons why I started this business is because I genuinely believe that people will remember you for how you make them feel. If you can make someone feel something right now and you can resonate with them, fine, they may not book a meeting with you right now. They might not buy from you right now, but my word, when they get back to the office, you'll be the person they remember because the way you made them feel. And that's the biggest boost you can give yourself right now.
Charlie, I know that when I was prospecting you when you were at your last company, I actually sent you that productivity book that Alex just mentioned. It had a different use case because I saw that you put out a post talking about taking on a new habit over 90 days, I think it was. So I helped you with that by sending you the book. But how did that make you feel receiving something through the mail?
Yeah, I think, I love direct mail, and I was actually gonna use you as my example because I think you did a really nice job of it. I think our conversation happened over about 4 or 5 months, so it was very much a long game. But that book was great, and I think that's a really good technique. There is a lot going out on LinkedIn right now. People have all become massive posters, so there's tons of content that you can get from that to use to latch on. And using books, and even just sort of starting a conversation. I started having a conversation with someone the other day about mental health, and then we went down this whole rabbit hole, and then we ended up talking about this solution probably 3 days later. But I'd much rather have a conversation with someone like that than someone who connects with me immediately and then goes straight into a pitch. It's going to completely turn me off. So it does feel really nice, and I think especially when it is really personalized like you did, Ben, I think you nailed it.
So I guess a follow-on question from that would be, how much time should we spend on personalizing our outreach over automation right now?
So I think, a company that I worked for previously, they've got an interesting strategy to this. I think it's called Don't Be That Guy. So they basically said they're stopping all outbound. They're not doing any outbound at all. But it's giving them the opportunity to think about, okay, how can we, change our techniques? How can we train? They're still fortunately getting quite a lot of inbound. But I think, spending more time doing your research, if you are still going the outbound approach, I think is really, really key. And I personally think you have to make things really personalized if they're going to have an impact. I think the biggest impact you can have. I'm not a massive believer in, kind of doing it halfway, because I think you can tell the difference. And I think, how you did it, Ben, was great. You read my post, your message with that was really relevant. So yeah, I think spending the time to be able to make it really personalized is key.
Awesome. Daniel, I'd be interested to get your thoughts on personalization when it comes to LinkedIn. And I know that a lot of people use automation to send out LinkedIn messages. I've never personally done it, but what's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I must admit, I'm personally very much against automation and sort of using or heavily relying on third-party applications to do your sort of method of communication for you. I'm a big fan of genuine having real conversations. And especially now, I've seen a lot of people writing posts or even talking to me directly complaining because so many companies have left their automation platforms on with messaging that wasn't relevant, you know, it was relevant to what's happened before now, not relevant right now, but they're still sending out these rather sales pitch style messaging, which, you know, is going to have an even worse effect now. I'm all for hyper personalization. It is so important, but it doesn't take a lot of time. We're not talking about spending like an hour researching one person. Like the example, you know, between Charlie and Ben. What did that take you? Seconds to have noticed Charlie write that post and share that post. It doesn't take long to read that, realize there's an opportunity, and then use your sort of creative thinking to send something that's going to help. It's the same if you look at someone's profile or just scroll through their recent activity. You know, we're only talking a couple of minutes max, and you should be able to find some pretty golden nuggets that you can then leverage to send a gift or send a digital gift or send a piece of content that's personalized, but you're able to reference something. It shows effort. And that's what is lacking in a lot of sales. Unfortunately, you know, everyone's looking for hacks and shortcuts and software and automation tools to just mass send stuff out. And I think now's the time to strip that away. And like I said before, be a human being and look for those opportunities to go that extra mile that most people won't do. That's how you stand out from the crowd. That's how you break through the noise. You do things that others aren't willing to do. And as we just said, it doesn't take a lot either. We're not talking about some mass cost or mass amount of time or effort. It's little things that provide a big impact. You saw, you know, that Charlie was doing something new and the planner would help. That didn't take a lot of time. It wouldn't have cost a lot, but it created a good opportunity and cemented a really strong relationship. So yeah, small time, just look through their activity and LinkedIn profile. You'll find a goldmine of information.
Yeah, I think one added thing, sorry, Stu, I'll just quickly add to what Daniel was saying there. If you're not doing this right now, please do it. Use LinkedIn voice notes. It's an awesome tool. You can go on your phone, get on Stu's profile, connect with him, and then just send a little audio of your voice saying, "Hey Stu, I noticed you did this. I loved reading your book. This point was awesome. I'm talking to a lot of other authors right now who are struggling with this problem." And do it authentically, because you can't automate that. It's so personalized. They can hear your voice. And then you can follow up with a really nice message after that on LinkedIn, and it takes a couple of seconds. You use LinkedIn voice messaging right now because I think it's really powerful.
That's a great tip. You know, I have the same reaction that Daniel just did to automation. These are human to human connections we should be making right now. I mean, we talk about empathy, but you can't automate that, right? I mean, that's the opposite of it. And that relates to, I'm seeing questions about, well, okay, what if I'm hearing that all buying decisions are put off for the moment? Well, this is a great time to show empathy, isn't it? Because you can still have conversations and this is the time to make connections as well. So that when these companies emerge from that freeze in activity, if they are, which is kind of a weird thing actually, if they're freezing activity right now, they shouldn't be. I mean, I think this is musical chairs for everybody, but engage in conversations with them. You know, I don't know, just what are you seeing out there? What are the biggest problems you see coming up as soon as those buying decisions and will just be, when the freeze comes off, where are you going with it? What are the biggest needs you have? And figure out how you fit in and how you can help. But this is the time to create those relationships, new relationships, really, because they've changed. Everything's changed right now. That propel you into a completely different trajectory when the spending freezes are off. And I've got to tell you though, that there are a lot of companies for whom there are no freezes, that they are moving ahead, full steam ahead. And if you're assuming that they're not, and you're not going to try, then you're standing on the sidelines and that's a losing proposition or a losing position to take. You know, I love the, I'm just going to come back to one other thing, Alex and Ben, that those survival kits, God, I would be, you know, people ought to be beating your door down to send those things out. I think they're a great way to connect with people and just have them remember you. And if you wouldn't mind, I'm going to grab something off my table behind me. I don't think this is something you send now, but I just want to prompt ideas. I think that would be helpful. Would you mind?
I'd
No,
love
of course.
that.
It's okay. Let me just grab it.
Stu's going to pull out a cartoon with my face on it.
No, it's not that. You know, when I coach clients, we are coming up with campaign strategies and items all the time. And one of my favorite is visual metaphors. And so this is one. This is kind of like an optical illusion, I would think, on the camera, but that's a coffee spill. And my clients will have these cups made up custom. So there's not enough time to do that right now. But if you send someone like this, something like this in a box, get their permission first. Alex, we got to develop these as a line, actually.
So what's the metaphor here?
Sorry? Well, the metaphor, it's loss, it's spillage. It's, you know, well, right now we're talking about sales opportunities that are, and opportunities to make connections and create relationships that will go away. It's a spillage if you're not doing something about it. And I would say if you're not sending things, for example, I mean, Reach Desk makes it so easy to do this. It's not a commercial for Reach Desk, but you make it so easy for people to do this. Do something, send something, connect in some way, connect on LinkedIn, or send something cool like that. Cause I guarantee people won't throw this away. So send something that's an item of fascination, but it illustrates a point, and starts a conversation. And that's really what you want to be doing right now.
Yeah. I think what you're saying, Stu, is that if you can't do business with someone right now, build for the future, right?
Absolutely. I mean, if you're standing on the sidelines, you are truly losing right now, because you just shouldn't assume that no business is taking place because the streets are empty. That's not what's happening out there.
Yeah.
Jump in.
So like we're sitting here on a what you call a webinar. Let's call it a webinar for now. Now, 2 weeks ago, the rise in webinars was up by 3,000%. Right?
Wow.
Now, my question is, when do you guys think people are going to get bored of it, and what's next?
Yeah,
I think we're a captive audience until we're done with sheltering in place.
Yeah.
You know, this is it.
I'm not saying categorically that it's going to happen, but like Charlie, you know, you've organized lots of webinars, events, stuff in the past as a marketing manager. Do you think people should just keep doing it and just making them better and better?
Yeah, I think to Stu's point, like right now we are very much a captive audience. I think, you know, while there's not really another choice for sure, I think, you know, even with webinars though, you can do things a little bit more creatively, and, you know, with meetings. So one of our team often does a lot of face-to-face meetings. He has been making the most of the nice weather. He's luckily got good Wi-Fi at his house. So rather than just make it, you know, a face-to-face meeting in his office, he started to do virtual beers. So what we've done is we've sent, you know, a cold one to someone's house with their permission, had their beer ready for their meeting. He's opened, you know, a cold one at his. And then, you know, I think that's just made the whole meeting a lot more friendly, a bit more, you know, and these are some of the things that maybe you wouldn't be able to do if you were in an office. So I think it's thinking through, you know, how can you be creative? How can you make the best of a bad situation? But yeah, definitely. I think webinars are going to get better and better. You're seeing more and more of these virtual conferences, which, you know, not even 6 months ago, 3 months ago, were still such a novelty, and now they're popping up every single month. And I think, you know, that's taking things to the next level. I think trying to keep people engaged for a full day online is a challenge. And I think that will be really interesting to see how brands are able to do that.
Yeah, I think I've seen a lot more people telling stories and creating a journey for their customers, especially when it becomes over digital, so webinars. What's some of the creative ways that you've seen people create those stories and create that journey when they're maybe not doing a full day webinar session, but splitting it down into maybe 6 separate webinars? How are they increasing that engagement, increasing those opportunities there? Alex, have you seen anything?
Well, in terms of how we get more out of.
Yeah, how do we increase engagement during these webinar sessions? Like what things can be doing?
There's a gazillion things you can do right now, right? I think everyone, and don't do this until, because I'm planning this next week, but take this idea if you want. I'm going to gamify every webinar after this week, right? If you turn up, the participants have to take part in a quiz, okay? And they have to, before the webinar, reveal 2 secrets about themselves, and then they're going to all put it out to the audience. The audience has to guess what those secrets are about those 2 people, right? It's about audience participation. It's about gamifying the experience, right? So that's one thing you can do, is if you're in a marketing role right now when you're watching this, or you rely on marketing to help you generate leads, go away and think of ways you can gamify webinars, right? Make it actually interactive, because you don't want to just sit here and listen to me all day. If I did a webinar a day, you'd get bored of me. So we want to make things more like participatory, if that's even a word, but a way that you can actually like get enjoyment out of it and create an immersive experience. I'm doing another one on Thursday. Someone's put a comment in about Scott Leese. We're doing it with him as well. Everything about that webinar, the more people that participate, the more charitable donations are going to go to the webinar. So make it for a good cause. There's so many things you can do surrounding a webinar. So if we get 1,000 people to turn up on Thursday, more money goes to charity to help NHS workers to take care of the people who are sick right now. So you can make your webinars about a good cause. This isn't just about you profiting from the situation. Like get some rock stars, put them into a webinar, and then have a charity boxing match, which is what me and Daniel are doing against the US. So if anyone wants to sign up for that, please do. But like, you can make these things where you can learn, you can immerse the audience, but you can do it for a good cause. Those are the 3 things that I'm focusing on right now. And I think that's going to make it more enjoyable, and it's going to make it way more engaging.
Echo what Charlie was mentioning about sending the beers as well. I mean, me and Alex, we did one a couple of weeks ago, which was just a virtual happy hour. And, you know, we were all there. There was no script, there was no structure, no advertisement, nothing formal. It's sort of stripping away from a lot of the structured webinars and just having virtual conversations. And, you know, I mean, we were there, we all had a drink, and there were so many of the participants that were there and on camera having a drink as well. And it was, you know, we got through so much like insights and stories, but it was informal and it kind of brought people together. And, you know, again, similar to what Charlie was saying, you could do it if you know, from a more corporate angle, where you know, potentially sent out a drink. And maybe it's not alcoholic. Maybe you just send out a cup of tea or a cup of coffee. You know, there's little things like that that just take away from the traditional, here's a webinar, join in, someone's going to teach you something, and actually make them more creative. Alex, I love the idea of, you know, gamification. But yeah, I think webinars have so much potential. We've got one way of doing it, which we've done it for so long. Now's the time, as we kind of said at the beginning of this session, to get creative and to start adding new layers to it. But yeah, tons of opportunities.
Awesome.
That's really interesting. You know, I'm reading these comments on the in the chat, and it's really interesting to see what's coming up as questions. And someone was asking about what do we think about sending videos, because he had one of his prospects tell him that they're losing their impact because he's getting 10 a day. What do you think about all? I think that, listen, I always believe that crowded channels are not good. Now, LinkedIn is a very crowded channel, so I'm not saying that LinkedIn isn't good, but you've got to move beyond making a connection real quick. And you've got to, I think it makes so much sense to send something in regular times, at least send something, or at least connect on the phone or Zoom, something, somehow bring that contact forward from just, hey, let's connect, you know. But I'm just wondering, you know, and others are saying, well, how do you get a prospect to admit they have a need or a problem? Or how do we get these, when we get these conversations, how do we move it to a sale? And I think that I'm almost thinking that that's not, listen, if they're ready to buy, they'll tell you. I think you can try, but I think it's, you know, I just love the things I'm hearing, Charlie, just sending beers and Daniel sending beers or some form, something, to some cocktail to hang out, as long as people aren't recovering alcoholics, I suppose. But to share a beer on a Zoom call. What a great idea. How simple can it be? What a great way to connect.
I'll share a beer with you every day on a Zoom call.
We should do that.
It'll probably be about breakfast time for you. That's the
I was going to say, I'll be waking up every morning to have a beer with you.
Yeah. I think one like really big problem, but it's been put in the post a couple of times, right? Is just onto that point. How do you get someone to realize that there's a problem you can solve without sort of forcing it, right? How do you kind of get that in front of someone? My answer to that is like, start by asking key questions. Okay, and what I mean by that is you can actually position this quite carefully. You can do it in an email, you can do it over the phone, via video, LinkedIn voice note, but you can say, and I gave the example to my team, like this is just one template off the top of my head, like here are some key questions that our marketing team are asking right now about how we create pipeline, because we have a marketing team and that's what we need to do as a business at ReachDesk. But also, how do we build relationships and keep customers engaged? Bullet point in email. So events cancelled, how can we continue to generate leads, question mark. So you can kind of almost lead with that a little bit more. Like, these are the questions we're asking ourselves, or I'm talking to lots of marketers right now, and the problems that they seem to be challenged with right now are X, Y, and Z. Here's how we can help. Here's a piece of content on it. Now, I'm stuck in my bedroom right now for the foreseeable future, and I've got a ton of time in my hands. If you want to find out how you can overcome these challenges right now, I'll be happy to give you as much of my time as you need. How about it, right? That's a really easy way to do it, where you start by asking the key questions, position it with the problem that they may not know exists right now, and then just offer them your time and the fact that you're going to help them overcome those problems. I think that's a really easy way of doing it, which isn't too soft in that it's just going to be battered to one side. But at the same time, you're positioning it with a situation where you can solve their problems by asking key questions that they may not have been aware of in the first place.
Definitely. One question that keeps coming up at the minute is on an objection. So an objection could be every buying conversation is on hold right now due to coronavirus. How do we as salespeople get around that pretty big objection?
I just want to jump in quickly. The first thing is, don't make assumptions. The big challenge you see a lot of people doing is they'll see or hear it once and then assume that everyone's in that position. We really need to not make any assumptions. Some people won't be able to buy right now, and we need to be sympathetic to that. And, you know, as we kind of already discussed, those, don't shut those off. Don't ignore those. Don't then brush them aside. You need to nurture those, because whilst they may not be buying now, this isn't going to go on forever, and there will be a time, hopefully soon, where they are going to be willing to buy. So actually continue to invest in those relationships, take the conversation away from trying to sell and instead turn it into growing. So again, asking questions, building relationships, etc. But there will be people that may still be interested or buying right now. So we need to make sure we treat everyone as individuals. If you get that objection, dig into it. Some people might be using that because, like with any objection, it's too expensive. You know, I'm not ready to buy now. Sometimes those objections aren't fully true or final. And actually, when you dig in, maybe it's mirroring something else or a different problem. And once you overcome it, actually, they may be open to buying right now. So deal with it like any objection. Dig in, ask more questions. If it really is that they can't buy right now, which is true for many companies out there, and just continue to build that relationship and, you know, look at when they may be, you know, in a situation that they can buy. But yeah, don't panic. don't sort of brush it aside. Dig a little deeper, because you never know what might be the sort of real reason there.
Yeah, and I'm seeing someone asked, you need to evaluate why or if your product or service is relevant today. And I have a quick little story to share. In one of our roundtable sessions, someone was on, and they're in the events business. So that's one of the businesses that you would assume would be dead right now. And in fact, they made their one of his colleagues made the biggest sale in the history of the company about 2 weeks into the pause. So you don't assume anything. I would say don't assume anything right now, and don't reevaluate your product or service based on the situation we're in today, because as I think Alex was saying, humans are so incredibly creative. We're finding ways around everything. We're finding new ways. There's a new normal. This is probably going to be a big part of the new normal, is how we meet. We'll be on Zoom from now on. And so I just can't emphasize enough. Don't stand on the sidelines right now. Have conversations. But I also love what you said, Alex, about saying, I'll give you as much time of my time as you'd like. I think if we approach these conversations, if they're going to be problem solving oriented at all, instead of pitching, offer to brainstorm. Just offer to, as like you said, Alex, I'll give you as much time as you'd like, and why don't we just brainstorm? Maybe we won't come. Maybe the solutions that we come up with have nothing to do with my product or service, but I'm willing to brainstorm with you. And I think those conversations are incredibly valuable, because then they also lead to the thing that Daniel was just saying about investing in relationships as opposed to pitching.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I'm getting people call me all the time, right? And I had a conversation with someone yesterday, and he just said, look, this is what I'm doing at the moment. And I was genuinely interested, but he actually said to me, mate, I don't think we're a good fit for you right now. We might be in 3 months' time, which means that he's very memorable to me. I respect everything about that individual, and I will be speaking to him in 3 months' time. And he said to me, like, do you think there's anyone you know who could benefit from what we're doing right now? And immediately I thought with 2 people. I'd referred him straight away. He sent me a message saying one of them's now an opportunity. So it doesn't need to be I want to get something for me now. It goes back to what Charlie said, which I think is really good. Walk a mile in someone else's shoes. If you really understand that and you build that relationship with someone right now, you have the opportunity to ask for something later on. And that might be a referral. It might be nothing, but give it a go. And I think you put yourself in a really good position. Don't give up. Like, it's sad to hear that some businesses are. You've got to be confident that your product does deliver value right now, but you've got to just keep finding new ways and get creative.
Yeah, I think to add to that as well, it's about finding those different personas that you might not have targeted before. So broadening your outreach and really redirecting what your product is offering to different people. It might be that you go towards the end user rather than straight for the C-suite decision maker, because they're the ones who might be feeling that problem a lot more. So that's something that we've definitely done a lot more at ReachDesk, and I know that it's helping a lot of other people when they look at it that way as well. Awesome. We've got 3 minutes left of this webinar, so I think this has been an amazing session, and hopefully we've added a lot of value to people and how they're going to go away and prospect. Just want to ask if anyone's got any last questions, then please do put them in the chat now. Otherwise, panelists, have you got any last words? Any motivational things that people should be taking away from this webinar and putting into place?
I think I've said it twice already, but I'm just going to say it one more time. Like, people will forget what you said and what you did, but they will not forget how you made them feel. All right, if you can make someone feel something good right now, whether it's going to benefit you right now in the short term or in the long run, I think that's what I'm getting our guys to focus on, and I think it's a really important thing to be able to realize right now.
Awesome.
I think one thing from me is another tip would be become a power user of your product in this time if you're not already. So I think Ben is an amazing example of this at ReachDesk. You know, he sent me maybe 3 direct mailers over the space of a few months. Every time I sent one, I ran around, you know, I received one, I ran around the office, showed everyone great brand awareness for ReachDesk, but also, you know, it really did make me feel good. And in the end, he did such a good job at it that the first time he ever pitched me on product, I actually asked him to come in and show our SDRs, you know, how to do direct mail, because I thought he did such a good job of it. So I think, you know, if you can become a power user of your own product, then, you know, and think about ways that you can show that to people. I think that almost does the selling for you.
Yeah, that's really good advice.
And I would say, and I've said it though all the way through, people are still doing business. There's a lot of business happening. People are very open to taking meetings like these, in this forum. So I think the message that just keeps showing up is don't give up, don't stand on the sidelines, and invest in relationships, as Daniel said, but invest in these relationships now, because they will pay off handsomely in the very, very near future, I believe. And I even perhaps even right now, again, people are getting deals, so don't stand on the sidelines.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think we've probably missed a couple of people's questions, so I'm sure this applies to all of you guys, unless you say otherwise. But like, get us on LinkedIn if you want to ask us any questions. Like some people say, like, how do I write good cold emails? Like, if you want some of my time, I'll give it to you. I'll teach you how to do that right now. I'm sure we haven't had a chance to answer everyone's, but get me on LinkedIn. I'll send you a link to my diary, and we can talk.
Awesome. My internet just dropped out at the last bit there, but I'm sure it was all fantastic and helpful as ever. So I just want to say again, thank you to everyone for joining the webinar, and obviously thank you, Daniel, Stu, Charlie, and Alex, for your insights and expertise. Please hit us up on LinkedIn or drop an email and we can redirect you in the right way. But yeah, this has been amazing.
Thanks a lot, Ben.
Thanks so much.
Daniel, Stu, and Charlie.
Thank
Nice
you,
to see you
everyone.
all.
Bye.
There we go.
Bye, guys.
Much. Bye.
Bye.